what is UV visible spectroscopy? It is actually a measurement of the attenuation of a light beam passing through a sample or after reflection from the sample surface. So suppose this is the sample and you pass a light beam of intensity I0 through this sample. Some part of the light energy will be absorbed by the sample and the rest part will be ejected out from the sample. So the light energy that comes out from the sample is of intensity I. This intensity I passes through a prism and falls on the detector. So the detector senses this change in intensity as a measure to the amount of light energy that has been absorbed by the sample. Now UV visible spectroscopy is basically an absorption spectroscopy based upon electronic excitation of from a sample surface. So suppose this is the light source which emits light in the UV visible range. So from here the light energy falls on the sample surface. Now the electrons from the sample on absorption of this light energy moves from a state of lower energy to a state of higher energy. The resultant light intensity passes through a prism and falls on a detector, which when analyzed gives a gap in it, which is called as the absorption spectrum. Now let us see the instrumentation of UV visible spectroscopy. So you have a light source which emits light in the UV visible range. The light source most preferably used is a combination of deuterium lamp and a tungsten lamp. Now deuterium lamp emits light in the UV range which is in the range from 200 to 400 nanometers, and tungsten lamp emits light in the visible range which is from 400 to 750 nanometers. So the light source is a combination of both the UV range as well as the visible range. Now this light source, it passes through a wavelength selector, or more specifically it is called as a monochromator. Now monochromator is a device used to resolve wide band of polychromatic light radiation into narrow band of monochromatic light radiation. So it actually filters the light, separates all other unrequired light wavelengths and only allows that selected wavelength of light to pass. So after passing through the monochromator, this light falls on the sample cuvette. So suppose the intensity of the light beam falling on the sample cuvette is of I0. Certain part of the light beam will be absorbed by the sample and the rest part of the light beam will be emitted out. Suppose the intensity is I. So the emitted light will fall on the detector. The detector used in this case can be either phototube or photomultiplier, and it is analyzed by a computer where the light energy is converted into electrical energy and it is processed and output is recorded. So this change in intensity actually gives the amount of light energy that will be absorbed by the sample. Now how will you measure that? It is given by Lambert's law, which states that A is equal to epsilon CL, where epsilon is the molar absorption coefficient, C is the concentration of the sample, L is the path length of the sample, and A is the absorbance. Now A is also written as log of I0 by I. So from these two formula we can find out the absorbance of a particular sample. Now we have to see what kind of molecules can be in this sample. So mostly we will use those kinds of molecules in UV visible spectroscopy who can absorb light energy. Such kind of molecules are called chromophores. Chromophores are those compounds who can interact with electromagnetic radiation and can go from a state of lower energy to a state of higher energy after absorbing that electromagnetic radiation. So mostly we have two types of chromophores. Number one, we have proteins. So there are certain chromophores in proteins like peptide bonds, aromatic side chains in amino acids like tryptophan, tyrosine, phenylalanine, and prosthetic groups like porphyrin and heme. So these kinds of chromophores are there in proteins. So if we place such kind of chromophores as our sample and analyze through UV visible spectroscopy. Second types of molecules that can be placed in the sample are nucleic acids. So mainly there are two types of chromophores which can be nucleic acids. We have purines or pyrimidines. So these two types of chromophores are present in DNA or RNA. We can keep them also, we can use them also as sample for use in UV visible spectroscopy.